This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Did you ever do a thought experiment about what it would be like if JD Vance instead of Mike Pence was the vice president on Jan 6th? And what he would have done when the election certificates needed to be certified? Well, we have our answer. And now we know that Donald Trump would not have had a call for the hanging of JD Vance, because JD Vance would have done exactly what Donald Trump wanted him to do and what Mike Pence refused to do under his constitutional duties. He would not have certified the election. He would have decertified the election. He would have called for alternate slates of electors to be sent from the states. He would have left it to the state legislatures, which were dominated by red, by MAGA, by Republicans, and he would have allowed them to have picked the president and disenfranchised 100 million people and made Donald Trump the president. How do I know that? Don't take my word for it. We have a clip. We have the receipts. Just in the last 48 hours, as his boss was preparing to hit the debate stage, JD Vance participated in on a podcast, a video podcast, and he was pressed 3 times by even the right-wing host of All In, the podcast. And he said he didn't back down. He doubled down on it. He said, I want an alternate slate of electors. I want a debate among the states. I want to throw it to the states to decide the presidency. Let's run the clip.
You're going to replace Mike Pence.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I have to win
It's going to be a
first.
close election, but if you do, Mike Pence, your new boss, Trump, is a little upset at Mike Pence because Mike Pence refused to overturn the election results. And if you were in that same position, what would you do? Would you have overturned the election results?
Well, I think let me take issue with the premise a little bit, Jason, because I don't think the argument was Mike Pence could overturn the election results. I think the argument was that Mike Pence could have done more. Whether you agree or disagree, Mike Pence could have done more to sort of surface some of the problems in the 2020 election.
Would you not certify the election? Would you have not certified the election?
Well, I think that what I would have done, I mean, look, I happen to think that there were issues back in 2020, particularly in Pennsylvania. Even, some of the courts that refused to throw out certified ballots did say that there were ballots that were cast in an illegal way. They just refused to actually decertify the election results in Pennsylvania. Do I think that we could have had a much more rational conversation about how to ensure that only legal ballots are cast? Yes. And do I think that Mike Pence could have played a better role? Yes. But again, the 2 premises that I take issue on is, 1, Pence was not asked to overturn the election. He couldn't have. But 2, the reason—
He was asked to not certify it.
Sure.
So would you have certified? I'll ask you for the third
Again,
time.
I would have asked the states to submit alternative slates of electors and let the country have the debate about what actually matters and what kind of an election that we had.
You
in
wouldn't
these
have
important
certified,
states.
to be clear.
I would have asked the states to submit alternative slates of
I think
electors.
that's what you're saying.
That's what I would have done. Again, I've said that publicly many times. But again, Jason, the important part is we would have had a big debate. And it doesn't necessarily mean the results would have been any different, but we at least would have had the debate in Pennsylvania and Georgia about how to better have a rational election system where legal ballots are cast. And again, look, I have no personal problem with Mike Pence.
Let me unpack that now so you understand the ramifications of those chilling words. Words so bad that Liz Cheney, who was the vice chairman of the Jan 6 committee, basically lost her seat and her place in MAGA because she opposed Donald Trump appropriately and pushed for his criminal prosecution. She said that those words represent tyranny and they're unconstitutional and illegal. That's from Liz Cheney. We also have, effectively, this is the result of what he just said. Let me unpack it. New electors, new slates of electors, turn it to the legislative branches of the various states, let them pick the president. Well, that's what would happen. If, under a constitutional electoral count analysis, if the vote was not certified in a ministerial fashion, which is all the president of the Senate, in this case the vice president, has at his disposal, he has no discretion at all. That was the guidance and the advice that was given to Mike Pence by none other than J. Michael Luttig, who's been on our show a number of times. I've interviewed him about 4 or 5 times, who is a conservative Federalist Society icon, former federal judge. That was the advice that he gave to Mike Pence. Mike Pence followed it to a T, certified the election, and that's why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won following Jan 6. But to leave it to the states, as JD Vance said, well, this is what it really means. You don't certify the election. You call or you recognize alternate slates of electors. That's what prosecutors call the fake electors. And then when the fake electors, if there's not enough of them in the battleground states to have Donald Trump win, because if you're going to recognize the new electors, the fake electors, then you have a Donald Trump win, right? On top of that, if you don't recognize these fake electors and you have competing slates of electors, it goes to the House, which then votes by state delegation, state by state, to determine the president. Well, there are more red states than blue states if you're not doing it by population, and therefore Donald Trump would have gotten the presidency. Everything that JD Vance just said would have guaranteed Donald Trump the presidency on January 6th, and Biden and Harris would have been on the outside looking in with their nose pressed up against the glass, trying to file lawsuits to get into power and to fulfill the will and to make sure that 100 million people aren't disenfranchised in this country. Or as Kamala Harris put it, Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. But not if JD Vance was the vice president. I don't want people to take their eye off the ball. If Donald Trump gets back into office, if he's restored to power, now with heightened power to ignore all of our constitutional norms, all of our criminal laws given to him by the MAGA right, alt-right wing of the Supreme Court, he will be you thought he was out of control before? There's nothing that will control him with the specter of absolute immunity that's now been given to him by the United States Supreme Court. And no truth to power, people he's surrounding himself with that will ensure that they will never exercise the 25th Amendment of the Constitution. They will never take him out of power. They will never find that he's committed treason or crimes against the American people. And JD Vance, who would be a heartbeat away from the presidency, and we already saw what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania a couple of months ago. This Yahoo decides that he's going to declare that he would not support a peaceful transfer of power, that he would have decertified the election, disenfranchised hundreds of millions of American votes, and turned it over to his buddies, the MAGA Red, to let them pick the presidency, i.e. their boss. So there's no firewall of protection in the White House at all. Feels like everything has a subscription these days. Food, streaming, phones, even dog food. Rocket Money has helped me get a hold of what's coming out of my bank account in one place. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that empowers you to save more, spend less, and take control of your financial life. With Rocket Money, you can see all of your checking, savings, credit cards, and investments in one convenient place, allowing you to understand your spending trends. Rocket Money can calculate your monthly spending allowance and alert you when you're close to going over budget so you can save more and spend less. It helped me realize I needed to cut back on food delivery. Whether your goal is to pay off your credit card debt, set aside money for a house, or simply save your money, Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you, sometimes by up to 20%. Saving money on a cell phone or cable bill and not having to deal with customer service yourself, that's a dream come true. Rocket Money has over 5 million happy members and has saved its users over $1 billion across all of the app's features. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Get Rocket Money today at rocketmoney.com/legalaf. That's rocketmoney.com/legalaf. Once again, rocketmoney.com/legalaf. At least Mike Pence fought back at the end against the worst urgings and instincts of Donald Trump. I mean, Mike Pence isn't even supporting Donald Trump. He came out on Fox News in March, and Mike Pence, his former vice president, joining a long list of over 200 senior Republican officials, senior conservative Federalist Society officials, senior White House lawyers for Republicans, senior presidential scholars hired by Republicans, former members of Donald Trump's own inner circle, his chief of staff, his former defense secretary, his former vice president. all of them see him as a threat to democracy, a threat to our constitutional republic, a threat to our rule of law that shouldn't get anywhere near the Oval Office. On the debate stage, he spent most of his airtime, if you were to add it up, in three ways. Every question posed to him, from women's reproductive rights to the economy to the border, he responded about China and tariffs, as if that was the panacea that was going to solve and address any of those problems. So you had China and tariffs. You had people in insane asylums and criminals in jails who are being released to take American jobs of black and brown people. And you have cats and dogs being eaten by Haitian Americans or Haitian immigrants in Ohio, right? By the way, just to comment on that, I have a large group of Haitian American friends from my time in Miami, people that are pillars of our community and pillars of the community in Miami, who are lawyers and judges and bar presidents and the like. And for them, I am livid that he would accuse and pick on the Haitian community, one of the poorest communities in the Caribbean, one of the ones where the people of Haiti are completely overrun with crime and poverty, mainly because of their corrupt government. And all they want to do is get to America and live a successful life. And they've got Donald Trump on a stage talking about cats and dogs being eaten. So that's what we heard up on the debate stage. And then you have JD Vance, who's telling the world and communicating to the world, MAGA, I got you. If this happens again on January 6th, 2025, I will not certify the election. I will abdicate my constitutional responsibility, and I will find a way for Donald Trump to become president by turning it over to the states, like we're some old-timey 1870s time where the House and the states pick the president instead of the Electoral College and the American people. The reason we're focusing so much on this on the MeidasTouch network is because this is an assault and affront to our way of life, to our constitutional republic and the pillars of it that undergird it. And now I don't want you to just think you're sending Donald Trump back to the White House. Let's see what happens. I got a guy next door to me that's flying a flag about no more bullshit. Vote for Donald Trump. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. You're going to send Donald Trump unhinged with no guardrails around him and completely rogue, along with his lapdog, JD Vance, who says he thinks it's a good idea to disenfranchise the American people and turn it over to the red states to pick our president. I mean, they may never leave if they get in. We're going to continue to follow it all of the statements that JD Vance makes as he sits a heartbeat away from the presidency if Donald Trump were somehow to pull off a win. Criminal justice system has exhausted its abilities to hold Donald Trump accountable from now until the election day. In other words, a number of these trials have been postponed, delayed, set up on appeal, immunity resulting, sentencing being delayed, and the like. That's just where we were. A year ago, we had 4 cases, criminal cases against Donald Trump because he did really bad and criminal things, 91 felony counts. And now we've got every one of those cases is either completely stayed or sentencing has been delayed. And now that's it for the data set that people need to understand before they vote. That Donald Trump was indicted 91 times, that Donald Trump was convicted 34 times in New York, that Donald Trump had one of his indictments dismissed, but it's up on appeal, that he had, he's got an appeal in Georgia about the Georgia one, and that the only case that led to convictions was in New York. The rest are on ice, and the sentencing of the one case where he was convicted is on hold until after the election. That is the data set people are going to have to understand. The good news is the people of America do understand it. 90% of the people who have been polled say they got enough information about Donald Trump to make their decision. Flip side, before the debate, 70% of the American people said they need to know more about Kamala Harris. And boy, do they know more about Kamala Harris after that magnificent debate performance. Right? She wiped the floor with Donald Trump. He took every bait. He was triggered in every way she wanted him to be triggered. I mean, this was cat and mouse, to continue with the pet theory. She was the tiger. He was the rodent. And that's all we saw on that debate stage for 2 straight hours. He looked like the feeble, fumbling, misogynist, racist, angry, guy that he is. That was all revealed. So we'll continue to follow what JD Vance would do if he was in Mike Pence's situation on the MeidasTouch Network, on Legal AF. Here's our calling card. Find out what 40 million people a month already know, that Legal AF is the home of law and politics on the MeidasTouch channel and on YouTube. Join us on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for our live recording of our MeidasTouch Legal AF podcast, where we curate the top 3 or 4 stories at the intersection of law and politics and bring it to you this way, without any varnish, unfiltered, unhinged at times, unplugged. Wednesdays, I do it with Karen Freeman McNiffalo. Saturdays with Ben Meiselas. And then on hot takes like this about every hour right here on the MeidasTouch Network. And then you can pick it up on audio podcast platforms of your choice. Look for Legal AF. There's our album cover. Plug it in and you will find us. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.